Brothers and sisters, I come before you to beg for your forgiveness, for I have sinned. I, Genghis Khan, the Simperator Supreme of Melee Combaticus, have made a sissy pew-pew build. Now you might be asking, Genghis, why would a melee-addicted maniac like you make a sissy range build? Well, that's because it's actually very good. And, oh god, I can't believe I'm actually saying this. It's actually a lot of fun. Oh, I feel dirty just saying that. So let's get on with this focus fire base build that I have named BULLETSTORM. This build will be in 2 parts. This is part 1, where I explain why the build is good and how to make it, and part 2 is the build in action, where I do the entire craft roll mission using this build. You can check out part 2 in the top right corner. The core of the focus fire build lies with the silencer equipped Purgator and 2 interceptors with, obviously, focus fire discipline. It's more of a range and melee hybrid build, which is why I was able to play it without puking all over my keyboard. The Purgator uses the long range of the silencer to keep up with the interceptors and trigger their focus fire autos, without spending too much AP on positioning and movement. That, combined with the fact that focus fire damage is not mitigated by range or cover, makes this build very powerful. Maxed out, the interceptor's focus fire will always hit for 5 damage, regardless of range or cover. That means anytime you shoot with the Purgator, both interceptors will do a guaranteed total of 10 damage, as long as the target is in range and line of sight of both interceptors, for no extra AP. This allows you to kill things like Plague Marines and even Plague Bearers with just 1 AP. And the absolute best thing about this build is just how little time and equipment you need to make it work. You don't need anything for it. No armor, no weapons, no grenades, passive items, or anything. You just need to hit level 4. You can have it up and running really early in the game, and it remains powerful even in the late game. It is an exceptional build for Bloom Spreader missions, especially after the nerf to Gates of Infinity, and I found it to be the best build for taking on the no willpower glorious deeds. So for this build, the way you build the interceptor is the same way as my Rambo build, check it out in the top right corner, but instead of going for the melee discipline first, you prioritize the focus fire discipline. This will give you 2 whole activations of focus fire and plus 5 damage per shot, which is higher than the base damage of the default and a lot of tier 1 and tier 2 storm bolters. For the Purgator, you need everything in the silencer discipline, except for, ironically, focus fire. Unlike the interceptor focus fire, the Purgator's does only 2 damage, which is just a waste of ammo. A properly built interceptor will rarely use any of their ammo, or will ever need to upgrade their storm bolters. So having an ability that does more damage than the basic storm bolter from all ranges, regardless of cover, is really optimal for them. In comparison, the Purgator's focus fire ability is just sad, so avoid putting any points in it. I also grabbed the Sanctified Killzone ability on the Purgators. This adds 2 damage to all supporting fire attacks from the interceptors, further increasing the already insane damage output of this build. You also want to grab all the crit damage bonuses and everything in the Astral Aim tree. And yes, Astral Aim, Disrupt Shot, and Psychic Onslaught on the side cannon do trigger focus fire from the interceptors. With a properly built Purgator, you can get plus 6 crit damage on Astral Aim, and with a decent silencer, you can easily reach 12 or more damage on crits. Add the 10 damage from the interceptors and boom! You can do over 22 damage with just 1 action. You can go with the side cannon on the Purgator, which does way more damage, but I found with the side cannon you end up spending 2 or more AP just to keep up with the interceptors. It's why I consider the silencer to be a better choice, because not only can it dish out decent damage, but it has a lot of utility with Disrupt Shot and being able to do full damage to enemies in partial cover. The 4th member can be a 3rd interceptor if you want the damage output to go absolutely bananas. But I prefer the Chaplain or the Justicar. 3 interceptors are great, but all they can do is pure damage. They are no good in situations where things go wrong, and on legendary difficulty, eventually, things will go wrong. And in those situations, the squishiness of the interceptors become painfully apparent. And when that happens, a provoke or an extra 4 AP can really turn a fight around. If you do go with the side cannon on the Purgator, then I suggest adding a Librarian as a 4th member. Their group teleports help with making sure the Purgator can keep up with the Interceptors and not have to waste AP on positioning. The best gear for this build is anything. The beauty of this build is that it works well with any gear, since the damage of the focus fire attack is not influenced by any of the weapons that the Interceptors have equipped. That is also why this build works great on glorious deeds that require you to strip all of your gear. There are some drawbacks to this build. For one, the Interceptors tend to hog almost all the XP, and kills from focus fire do not generate any willpower. Also, by late game, the focus fire abilities become sorta irrelevant, because by then the Interceptors become so scary that you will rarely need to use focus fire to do majority of your damage. So yeah, this is a really amazing build that was actually suggested by one of you guys in the comment section, and it was a very pleasant surprise. I rarely do enjoy fighting from a distance, but this build is not your typical hide and shoot from as far away as possible until everything is dead build. You actually have to think about your approach and positioning a lot. The way you fight with this build is that you pick out the targets for the Interceptors first, but you need to pick them in a way that after jumping in, both Interceptors are in range and have line of sight of all the other enemies. And those enemies are also in the line of sight of the Purgator. It tends to get tricky, but it is a lot of fun to figure out who dies by the sword and who dies by the storm of bullets. BULLETSTORM! Achoo! If you hate the corny ass names of these builds, then suck it up, Buttercup, cause I ain't changing. What I'm saying is that it's not a brain dead build like the Rambo build, and it's pretty up there in power level. Again, the absolute best thing about this build is how early you can have this going. Both the Rambo and one-turn builds are late game builds and take a lot of time and resources to function properly. This build is up and kicking ass in under 80 days in the campaign. It is an amazing build and was a pleasure to try out, and thank you for sharing it with me. If you want to see it in action, then please check out part 2 in the top right corner where I use this build to tackle the Craft World mission. Other than that, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see y'all next time. Peace!